The tires of my old sedan crunched against the muddy gravel as I pulled into the driveway of the house I'd bought for $1.200. The late spring rain had softened the ground, and the air was thick with the scent of wet pine and decay. The house stood at the end of the sloped lot, its faded clapboard siding peeling like old skin, its windows boarded up, and its roof sagging under the weight of neglect. To anyone else, it was a wreck, a teardown not worth the dirt it sat on. To me, Elise Morgan, it was a lifeline. At 30, I'd poured every cent of my savings into this crumbling structure, and for that choice, my family had erased me from their lives. As I sat in the driver's seat, the rain streaking down my windshield, I didn't feel victorious. I felt like a castaway, clutching the keys to a future no one else believed in. I'd grown up in the shadow of my family's expectations in a small, affluent town in Oregon. My parents, Robert and Marilyn, were the epitome of suburban success. Robert, a corporate lawyer with a client list full of local elites. Marilyn, a lifestyle coach who sold empowerment to wealthy housewives. They lived for appearances, the manicured lawn, the annual gala invitations, the perfect family narrative. My older sister, Cassandra, was their pride and joy, a social media influencer with a wellness brand. She was the daughter they showcased, the one whose every move was celebrated. I was the invisible one, the one who never fit their polished mold. My passion was writing grants, articles, anything that could fund community initiatives or tell a story. I worked freelance, cobbling together a living while helping nonprofits secure funding. It wasn't lucrative, but it was meaningful. My family saw it as a phase, not a life. "When are you going to settle down with a real career?" Marilyn would ask, her tone laced with pity. Robert was more direct. "You're wasting your talent." Elise, "Cassandra's building an empire. What are you doing?" I'd swallow my hurt, knowing they'd never understand. The fracture came 3 weeks ago at a family dinner. The dining room was a stage for Marilyn's perfectionism crystal glassware, a centerpiece of imported orchids, and a menu of grilled salmon and quinoa salad. Cassandra was in her element, talking about her upcoming wellness retreat in Napa Valley. $25 oro to secure the venue, she said, as if it were pocket change. "It's a game changer for my brand," she explained, her voice dripping with confidence. Marilyn nodded, her eyes sparkling with pride. Robert turned to me, his tone deceptively casual. "Elise, you said you'd transfer the funds for Cassandra's retreat. What's the holdup?" I set my glass down, my heart racing. "I didn't transfer the money," I said, my voice steady despite the knot in my stomach. "I bought something instead." The room went silent. Cassandra's fork paused midair. Marilyn's smile froze. "What do you mean?" "You bought something?" she asked, her voice sharp. "I bought a house," I said. "It's a fixer-upper, but it's mine. I used my savings $1.200. Silence. Then Cassandra's laugh, high and mocking. "You spent your money on a shack instead of investing in my retreat. That's peak Elise, always the martyr." "I never agreed to fund your retreat," I said, my voice rising. "You assumed I'd just hand over my savings." Robert's face darkened, his voice low and dangerous. "You chose to throw your money away on some dump instead of supporting your sister. After all we've done for you." "All you've done," I snapped, unable to hold back. "You mean ignoring me unless I'm useful? I earned that money. It's mine to spend." Marilyn slammed her glass on the table. "You've chosen to live like a pauper," she said. "Don't expect us to support your delusions." I tried to respond, but Robert cut me off. "If you want to be on your own, Elise, then be completely on your own. Don't come back when you realize your mistake." The next day, I was removed from the family group chat. My invitation to Cassandra's retreat launch was canceled. My name was erased from their lives, as if I'd never been part of them. And now, here I was, parked in the driveway of my $1.200 house, the rain a steady drumbeat against the car. I stepped out, my boots sinking into the mud. The air was cool, the sky a heavy gray that mirrored the weight in my chest. I grabbed a folding chair from the trunk, the one I used for writing in coffee shops, and set it up in the gravel. I sat, staring at the house, letting the reality sink in. It was broken, ugly, and mine, a symbol of everything my family despised: independence, defiance, a life that didn't bow to their rules. My phone buzzed. A text from Marilyn. "You're not welcome at Cassandra's launch. You've made your choice." No warmth, no explanation, just a cold. Final cut? I stared at the screen, my thumb hovering over the delete button, then slipped the phone into my jacket. I didn't need their words anymore. I needed this house. This chance to build something they couldn't touch. The wind tugged at my jacket, but I stayed seated, my eyes fixed on the house. It wasn't just a purchase, it was a rebellion. They'd mocked it, called it a mistake, a dump, but it was mine. And I'd make it into something real. A memory surfaced. My 17th birthday. When Marilyn threw a party for Cassandra's modeling contract, my gift was a used notebook and a lecture about staying practical. Cassandra got a trip to Paris. I'd smiled through it, but the hurt had lingered, a quiet wound that never healed. I stood, my boots crunching against the gravel, and walked toward the house. The front door was warped, the screen torn, but I pushed it open, stepping onto creaky floorboards that groaned under my weight. The air inside was stale, heavy with mildew and dust. I set down my bag and pulled out a single item, a faded yellow curtain from my old apartment. I climbed onto a rickety stool, trying to hang it over the living room window. The rod slipped, crashing to the floor with a clang that echoed in the empty space. "Great start," I muttered, rubbing my elbow where it had hit the wall. I sank onto the floor, leaning against the peeling wallpaper, and let the silence wrap around me. Memories flooded in graduations where my family clapped for Cassandra, but left early for me. Christmases where my gifts were afterthoughts. I'd spent years trying to earn their love, thinking if I gave enough, they'd see me, but they never did. I stood, brushing the dust from my jeans. This house was a mess, but it was mine. I'd build it into something they couldn't mock, something that didn't need their approval, and when they came knocking, as I knew they would, I'd be ready. The house was colder than I'd anticipated, the kind of damp chill that clung to your skin and settled in your bones. I sat on the cracked linoleum floor of the future kitchen, a single flickering bulb casting long shadows across the stained walls. The air was thick with the scent of mildew. The ceiling sagged, and the silence was oppressive. But this Wanda Boy 200 wreck was mine, a fragile anchor in the storm of my family's betrayal. They'd erased me, Robert. Marilyn. Cassandra with a precision that was both ruthless and familiar. As I traced the cracks in the floor with my finger, I realized the true pain wasn't their rejection. It was the dawning truth that they'd never truly been mine to lose. Growing up, I'd always been the shadow in their spotlight. Cassandra was the star, her piano recitals were family pilgrimages. Her Instagram posts celebrated like national holidays. I was the one who got straight A's, who won scholarships, who stayed up late helping Marilyn with her coaching seminars or Robert with his legal briefs. But my achievements were met with shrugs, not applause. "Don't get cocky, Elise," Marilyn would say when I brought home an award. Cassandra's working hard too. Cassandra, whose hard work was filming yoga tutorials and chasing sponsorships, was their pride. I was their tool, valued only when I served their agenda. I'd spent years trying to change that. I'd written Cassandra's retreat proposals for free, edited her videos, even covered her rent when she overspent on branding. I thought if I gave enough, they'd see me. But they didn't. The dinner where I announced my house purchase was just the final act in a play they'd been writing for years. I stood, my knees stiff from the cold floor, and walked to the living room. The yellow curtain lay where it had fallen, a sad burst of color against the gray. I picked it up, determined to try again. But my hands trembled not from the cold, but from memory. I remembered my 16th birthday, when Marilyn threw a party for Cassandra's debate team win. My cake was a grocery store leftover, my name misspelled Elise. I'd laughed it off, but it stung. Cassandra got a gold necklace that day, engraved with her initials. I got a lecture about staying humble. The pattern was undeniable now. Family photos where I was pushed to the edge. Birthday card signed love, Mom and Dad, but addressed to Cassandra. The time I was left behind on a family ski trip because there wasn't room. I'd told myself it was oversight, that they didn't mean it. But it wasn't oversight. It was a choice. A slow, deliberate erasure that left me doubting my own worth. My phone buzzed, pulling me back to the present. A voicemail from Marilyn. I hesitated, my thumb hovering over the play button. Part of me wanted to delete it, to sever the last tie to them, but curiosity or maybe defiance won out. I pressed play. "Elise, darling." Marilyn's voice was honeyed, the tone she used for her clients. "I've been thinking about you. Things got heated, and we all said things we didn't mean. But you have to understand, Cassandra's under so much stress with her retreat. She looks up to you. You know, that's why she reacted so strongly. Your father's just disappointed. You've always been the strong one. The bigger person, can't you let this go? I replayed the message, my jaw tight. The bigger person, it was their weapon. A way to guilt me into silence while they evaded responsibility. Cassandra was never asked to be the bigger person. She could lie, manipulate, disappear for months, and still come home to adoration. Me, I was expected to absorb every wound, every betrayal, and smile through it. I set the phone down, my hands shaking. The house was silent, but the silence was alive with the weight of their actions. I walked to the window. Staring out at the muddy driveway, the folding chair stood like a sentinel in the dusk. I'd bought this house to escape their control, to build something they couldn't take, but their voices still echoed, calling me selfish, foolish, invisible. A memory hit harder than the rest. My college graduation. When I'd won a national writing award, I'd invited my family, hoping they'd finally be proud. Robert and Marilyn arrived late, distracted, and left early for Cassandra's brand launch. It's a big moment for her, Marilyn said, as if my achievement was trivial. Cassandra didn't even show she sent a text. Congrats. Super swamped, I'd stood alone in my cap and gown, watching families embrace their graduates, and vowed I'd never beg for their love again. I turned back to the room, my resolve hardening. This house wasn't just a purchase, it was a declaration. They'd mocked it, called it a dump, a mistake, but it was mine. And I'd make it into something real. A new notification pinged on my phone, a message from my aunt, Lorraine, the only family member who'd ever seen me. Hey, Elise? I saw you're out of the group chat. You okay? I smiled, a small warmth breaking through the cold. Lorraine had always been different, a quiet rebel who'd left the family's orbit years ago. I typed back, I'm okay. Just starting over. The house creaked around me, as if agreeing. I wasn't broken? Not yet, and I hadn't come this far to crawl back. The air in the house was heavy with the scent of wet wood and determination. I'd spent the past week scrubbing floors, patching walls, and hauling debris to the curb. Each task a small act of defiance against my family's rejection. The 1,200 house was starting to feel less like a ruin and more like a canvas. But the weight of my family's erasure lingered. They'd mocked my choice, cast me out, and now they were moving on as if I'd never existed. I was trying to focus on the future, but the past had a way of clawing its way back. Cassandra's wellness retreat launch was the talk of the town, a glitzy event at the local vineyard that Marilyn had been hyping for weeks. I'd been uninvited, of course, but the town's gossip mill ensured I heard every detail. The string quartet, the celebrity yoga instructor, the 500-a-plate dinner. I tried to ignore it, focusing on my house, but the exclusion stung. Then, 2 days before the event, a friend sent me a link to Cassandra's Instagram Live. I hesitated, knowing it would hurt, but I clicked anyway. There she was, radiant in a white linen dress. Standing in the vineyard's event hall, I'm so excited for the retreat, she gushed, her voice dripping with practiced sincerity. This is about healing, community, and family. She paused, her smile turning wistful. I wish my sister, Elise, could be here. She's struggling right now, living in this rundown house she bought for $1. It's sad, really, but we're all about lifting each other up, right? The comments flooded in. Poor thing. You're such a good sister for caring. Is she okay? My blood boiled. She was turning my choice into a sob story, painting me as a broken charity case to boost her brand, but it got worse. Marilyn joined the frame, her smile as polished as ever. Elise has always been independent, she said, her tone dripping with pity. We tried to help her, but she chose this path. Sometimes you have to let people learn the hard way. Robert appeared next, his voice grave. It's tough, he said. She threw away her savings on a shack. We're praying she comes around. The comments exploded. That's so sad. You're such a strong family. She's lucky to have you. I shut off the phone, my hands shaking with rage. They weren't just erasing me, they were rewriting my story, turning my defiance into failure, my home into a joke, and they were doing it publicly, in front of thousands of followers, knowing I'd see it. The humiliation was deliberate, a way to ensure I stayed small, silent, invisible. I paced the living room, the yellow curtain now hanging crookedly but defiantly over the window. I wanted to scream, to drive to the vineyard and confront them in front of their adoring crowd, but I knew that's what they wanted, a reaction, a chance to paint me as unhinged. Instead, I grabbed my laptop and started typing, pouring my anger into a blog post I'd never publish. They mocked my $1.200 house, but it's more than they'll ever build. They called me selfish. But I'm free. They erased me. But I'm still here. Writing calmed me, but it didn't erase the sting. I needed to do something to reclaim my narrative. I texted Lorraine, the only family member who'd reached out. "Did you see Cassandra's live? They're trashing me publicly." Her reply was instant. "I saw it. It's disgusting. You don't deserve this. Want me to come over?" I hesitated, then typed, "Not yet, but I need to fight back. Any ideas?" Lorraine's response was simple. "Document everything. Screenshots, recordings, timestamps. They're building a house of cards. Elise, let them think they're winning for now." Her words sparked something in me. I spent the next hour saving screenshots of the live, downloading the video, and noting every comment that praised Cassandra's compassion. I didn't know what I'd do with it yet. But Lorraine was right. They were overplaying their hand, and I'd be ready when they slipped. The night of the retreat launch, I stayed home, refusing to give them the satisfaction of my presence. But the town's gossip reached me anyway. Friends texted updates, Cassandra's speech about family unity, Marilyn's toast to resilience, Robert's hope that I'd find my way. It was all a performance, a way to cement their narrative while burying me. But buried things have a way of surfacing. The next morning, I woke to a new notification, a voicemail from Cassandra. I braced myself and played it. "Elise." "Hey." Her voice was soft, calculated. "I know things are tense, but I mentioned you in my speech last night. I'm trying to help you. You know, people are worried about you, living in that house. Maybe we can talk. I just want what's best for you." The message ended with a sigh, as if she were the martyr. I laughed, a bitter sound that echoed in the empty room. She wasn't trying to help, she was setting the stage for something bigger, something I couldn't yet see, but I'd learned from Lorraine. Document? Wait. Strike. I saved the voicemail, adding it to my growing file of evidence. My family thought they'd won, but they'd underestimated me. This $1.200 house wasn't just a home, it was my battleground. The house was starting to take shape. Slowly but stubbornly, I'd spent weeks sanding floors, patching drywall, and painting walls with discounted cans of eggshell white. Each stroke of the brush was a small victory, a way to drown out the echo of my family's mockery. The $1.200 house was no longer just a shell, it was becoming a home, a testament to my refusal to break. But the pain of their betrayal lingered, sharpened by the public humiliation of Cassandra's Instagram live. They'd turned my defiance into a pity party, and I was still reeling from the audacity of it all. I tried to focus on the present, on the house, on the life I was building, but the past kept intruding. Cassandra's retreat was a roaring success, at least according to her social media. Photos of her posing with influencers, sipping champagne, and leading sunrise yoga sessions flooded my feed, each one a reminder of my exclusion. Marilyn and Robert were in every shot, beaming like proud parents. Their narrative of the perfect family intact, I was nowhere to be seen, erased from their story as if I'd never existed. Then, a month after the retreat, a discovery turned my world upside down. I was cleaning out a box of old papers in the attic, looking for my property deed, when I found a crumpled envelope tucked beneath a stack of receipts. It was addressed to me, but the handwriting was Marilyn's. Inside was a flyer for a GoFundMe campaign titled, "Help Elise Rebuild." My heart stopped. The photo on the flyer was me, taken without my knowledge, standing in the driveway of my house, holding a paint can, my face tired but determined. The caption read, "My daughter Elise is struggling after buying a rundown house for $1. Help us give her the life she deserves." I scrolled through the campaign online, my stomach churning. It had raised $22, with donations from strangers and local businesses. The organizer was Cassandra. The funds linked to her business PayPal. The comments were a mix of sympathy and praise. "You're such a good sister. This is so inspiring. Poor Elise. She's lucky to have you." I felt sick. They'd turned my home, my choice, into a charity case, and they were pocketing the money. I called Lorraine immediately, my voice shaking. They started a GoFundMe in my name, I said, pacing the attic. They're using me to scam people. And they didn't even tell me. Lorraine's voice was calm but furious. That's not just betrayal, Elise. That's fraud. Send me everything screenshots. The flyer, the donation page. We'll figure this out. I spent the next hour documenting the campaign, saving every post, every comment, every transaction screenshot I could access. The more I dug, the worse it got. Cassandra had been posting updates about my struggle, complete with staged photos of my house's worst corners, cracked tiles, leaking pipes taken when she'd visited to check on me. She'd never asked permission, never mentioned the campaign. Marilyn and Robert had shared the fundraiser on their socials, calling it a family effort to help Elise. It was a lie, a calculated performance to boost Cassandra's brand while painting me as helpless. I confronted Cassandra via text. Why is there a GoFundMe in my name? You're using my house, my life, to scam people. Explain. Her reply was instant, dripping with faux innocence. I was trying to help. Elise, people want to support you. I didn't think you'd mind. You didn't ask, I shot back. And you're keeping the money? That's not help, that's theft. She didn't respond for hours. When she did, it was a voice message, her tone defensive. Elisa, you're overreacting. The money's for the retreat. It's an investment in our family's future. You'd understand if you weren't so focused on that dump. I saved the message, my hands trembling with rage. They weren't just mocking me. They were exploiting me, turning my home into a prop for their greed. Lorraine came over that night, her laptop open to a legal forum. This is serious, she said, scrolling through my evidence. It's not just unethical, it's potentially criminal. We need to report it. But we need to be strategic. Cassandra's retreat is hosting a big gala next week. That's your moment. I nodded, the idea sparking a fire in me. I want them to face this publicly. I said, they humiliated me in front of thousands. I want the truth to come out the same way. Lorraine smiled, a glint in her eye. Then let's make sure it does. Get me every piece of evidence you have. I know a paralegal who can draft a cease and desist. We'll hit them where it hurts, right in front of their audience. The week before the gala, I barely slept. I worked on the house during the day, painting, hammering, scrubbing, each task a way to channel my anger. At night, I pored over the GoFundMe evidence, building a case with Lorraine's guidance. The campaign was still active, raking in donations while Cassandra posted about healing and family love. The hypocrisy was staggering, but it fueled me. They thought they could bury me. They were wrong. The drive to the vineyard hosting Cassandra's gala felt like a march to battle. The late summer air was warm, but my hands were cold as I gripped the steering wheel. The cease and desist letter from Lorraine's paralegal friend tucked in my bag. I wasn't nervous, not exactly. It was a steady, focused resolve, the kind that comes when you've been pushed too far. My family had mocked my $1 200 house, erased me from their lives, and exploited my story for profit. Tonight, at their glittering event, I'd make sure the truth came out. The vineyard was a sea of lights and luxury, with valets in crisp uniforms and banners proclaiming Cassandra's wellness gala, healing hearts, building futures. The irony wasn't lost on me. I stepped out of my car, wearing a simple black dress and a silver pendant my grandmother had given me, a relic Marilyn once called cheap. Tonight, it felt like armor, a quiet reminder of the strength I'd inherited from those who'd loved me without conditions. I handed my keys to the valet and walked toward the entrance, my heart steady, my steps deliberate. The ballroom was a spectacle. Chandeliers casting prisms across the walls, floral arrangements towering over linen-draped tables, and a crowd of influencers, local elites, and minor celebrities. Cassandra was center stage, radiant in a gold gown, her laugh echoing as she posed for photos with sponsors and fans. Marilyn and Robert flanked her, their smiles as polished as the crystal flutes they held, their faces masks of practiced perfection. I stayed in the shadows, blending into the crowd, my presence unnoticed. I wasn't here to make a scene, not yet. I was here to watch their world crack, to see the facade they'd built crumble under the weight of their own lies. The gala began with a slideshow, supposedly showcasing Cassandra's community impact. Images of smiling families, donated school supplies, and yoga retreats flashed across the screen, each one met with polite applause. The room buzzed with admiration, the crowd eating up the narrative of Cassandra as a selfless visionary. Then, without warning, The screen flickered. A new slide appeared, a screenshot of the GoFundMe campaign. My face plastered across it. The caption clear, "Help Elise rebuild. Raised 22s. Seno." Another slide followed. A text from Cassandra to a friend, leaked by an anonymous donor who'd seen through her charade. "Elise's house is a goldmine for sympathy. Keep the donations coming." The room went silent. Phones shot up, cameras flashing, capturing the moment in real time. A murmur rippled through the crowd, growing into a wave of gasps and whispers. Hashtags appeared instantly. Cassandra fraud GoFundMe scam. Cassandra froze, her smile faltering as she turned to the screen. For the first time, I saw fear in her eyes. A crack in the perfect mask she'd worn for years. Marilyn's face went pale, her hand clutching Robert's arm, while Robert's jaw tightened, his eyes darting to the exits as if he could escape the truth. But there was no escape, not this time. Lorraine stepped forward from the crowd, her presence commanding, her gray hair catching the light like a crown. She'd been invited as a family friend, but had planned this moment with me, a quiet rebellion against the family that had shunned us both. She took the stage, her voice clear and unwavering. Cutting through the stunned silence, "I was asked to speak about family tonight," she began, her eyes sweeping the room, locking onto faces frozen in shock. "But I can't stand here and lie. This family has built a facade, exploiting one of their own for profit. Elise Morgan bought a $1,200 house with her own savings, a symbol of her independence and courage. For that, they mocked her, disowned her, and used her story to scam thousands. This isn't healing, it's betrayal." The crowd erupted, some clapping, some whispering, some staring in disbelief. Cassandra tried to speak, her voice shaking, her hands trembling as she gripped the podium. "This is a misunderstanding," she stammered, her eyes darting to the crowd for support that wasn't there. "We were helping Elise. Helping." I stepped forward, my voice cutting through the noise like a blade. The room turned to me, cameras flashing, phones recording every word. I felt the weight of their stares. But I stood tall, the pendant at my neck a grounding force. "You started a GoFundMe in my name without my consent. You took 22? Whoa, and kept it for your retreat. You called my home a dump, my life a tragedy. All to make yourself look good. That's not help, that's theft." The silence was deafening, a void that swallowed their excuses. Cassandra's face crumpled, tears welling. But they weren't real. They were the practiced tears of someone who'd always played the victim. Marilyn stepped forward, her voice sharp, her composure fraying. "Elise, this is not the place. You're embarrassing yourself in front of all these people." "No," I said, my voice steady, my eyes locked on hers. "You embarrassed yourselves when you lied to these people, when you erased me from your family because I dared to choose myself. You thought you could bury me, but I'm still here, and I'm not invisible anymore." Robert tried to intervene, his tone patronizing, his lawyer's charm faltering. "Elise, let's discuss this privately. We're a family. We're not." I cut him off, my voice like steel. "You stopped being my family the moment you mocked my home, my life, and used me for profit. You chose your image over me, and I'm done pretending that's love." I turned to the crowd, my heart pounding but my voice clear, resonant with the truth I'd carried for years. "This house, this $1,200 dream, is mine. It's not a tragedy, it's a triumph. It's proof that I don't need your approval, your money, or your lies to build something real. No one, not even my family, can take that from me." Lorraine stepped beside me, her arm around my shoulders, her presence a quiet pillar of strength. The crowd was a mix of applause and stunned silence, phones still recording, the moment spreading like wildfire across social media. Cassandra fled the stage, her gold gown trailing behind her like a fallen banner. Marilyn and Robert following, their perfect facade shattered into 1,000 irreparable pieces. I didn't chase them. I didn't need to. The truth was out, and it was louder than their carefully curated lies. As we left the ballroom, Lorraine squeezed my hand, her eyes shining with pride. "You did it, Elise. You took your story back, and you did it with grace." I nodded, the pendant at my neck a quiet reminder of who I was, of the grandmother who'd believed in me when no one else did. The fight wasn't over, there'd be fallout, investigations, maybe even legal battles, but for the first time, I felt free. unburdened by the weight of their expectations. The morning after the gala, sunlight streamed through the newly patched windows of my $1.200 house, casting soft, golden patterns across the freshly painted walls. The air smelled of coffee and new beginnings, a far cry from the mildew and despair that had once clung to every corner. I stood in the kitchen, a chipped mug in hand, watching the neighborhood kids chase each other outside, their laughter weaving a tapestry of hope that warmed the quiet space. The events of the gala, the leaked screenshots, Lorraine's powerful speech. My public confrontation had shattered my family's carefully constructed facade, and the fallout was still reverberating. But as I sipped my coffee, I felt a profound peace. Anchored by the home I'd fought so hard to build, the internet had erupted after the gala, a digital storm that showed no signs of slowing. Clips of Cassandra's panicked face went viral, her frozen smile dissected in countless memes and Reddit threads. Hashtags like Cassandra fraud and GoFundMe scam trended for days, fueled by screenshots of her incriminating texts and the GoFundMe's financial trail. Sponsors fled her retreat, donors demanded refunds, and the fundraising platform shut down the campaign, with local authorities launching an investigation into potential fraud. Marilyn and Robert issued a public apology on their social media, claiming they'd been misled by Cassandra's intentions, but the town saw through their flimsy excuses. The gossip mill, once their weapon, turned against them, whispering about their greed and deceit. I didn't gloat, I didn't need to. The truth had done its work, and it was louder than their lies. I'd spent the past month rebuilding not just the house but myself. Piece by painstaking piece, I replaced the sagging roof with help from a local contractor who'd heard my story, installed hardwood floors that gleamed under the sunlight, and planted a small herb garden in the front yard. Its basil and rosemary a quiet promise of growth. Each task was a step toward healing, a way to reclaim the narrative my family had tried to steal. Lorraine was a constant presence, bringing over tools, sharing meals, and offering wisdom that grounded me. "You're stronger than they'll ever be," she'd say, her hands steady as she hammered nails, her eyes fierce with pride. Her belief in me was a lifeline, a reminder that family wasn't defined by blood but by loyalty. Then, one crisp afternoon, my phone buzzed with a text from Cassandra. "Elise, things are rough. Can we stay with you for a bit, just until we figure things out?" No apology. No acknowledgement of the pain she'd caused, just the same entitled expectation that I'd open my door after everything they'd done. I stared at the message, letting the absurdity wash over me like a cold wave. The sister who'd mocked my home, exploited my story for profit, and laughed as she turned my life into a spectacle, now wanted shelter under the roof she'd called a dump. The audacity was almost laughable, but it also stung, a final reminder of how little they'd ever valued me. I showed the text to Lorraine, who snorted, her eyes flashing with amusement and indignation. "The nerve of that girl," she said, setting down her coffee mug. "After all this, she thinks she can waltz back in. What are you going to do?" "Elise," I thought about it, my mind drifting to the years of erasure, the misspelled birthday cakes, the forgotten milestones, the GoFundMe scam that had turned my home into a prop. I remembered the gala, the moment their lies had unraveled, and the clarity that had come with speaking my truth. Then I typed, "There's no room for lies here. Find your own way." I sent it and blocked her number, a weight lifting from my shoulders like a physical burden. The pendant at my neck, my grandmother's gift, felt warmer against my skin, a quiet affirmation of my choice. The house was more than a structure now, it was a symbol of my resilience, a testament to my refusal to be erased. I hung a small frame in the entryway, a faded photo of me at 10. Standing in a community garden I'd helped plant, my hands dirty but my smile wide. Lorraine was in the background, clapping, her face alight with pride that my parents had never shown. Beneath the photo, I'd written in careful script, "You were always enough." It was a reminder, a vow to myself that I'd never again let anyone dim my light. The neighborhood rallied around me, their support a quiet but powerful force. A local hardware store donated paint and lumber. Inspired by my story, kids drew chalk art on my sidewalk, bright suns, hearts, and the words "You're home." Neighbors stopped by with casseroles, gardening tips, and stories of their own struggles. Weaving me into the fabric of this small, vibrant community, I started a writing workshop at the community center. teaching others how to craft grants and tell their stories. A nod to the passion that had always defined me. My blog, once a private refuge, went public, chronicling my journey from betrayal to triumph. Readers commented, sharing their own tales of family conflict and resilience. And I read every one, their words a reminder that I wasn't alone. One evening, as I sat on the porch, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of amber and rose, my phone buzzed with an email from the town's housing board. We've received complaints about your property from Cassandra Morgan, citing code violations. Upon inspection, your house meets all standards. The complaints have been dismissed. I smiled, picturing Cassandra's frustration as her final attempt to hurt me failed. She'd tried to weaponize the system, but my home was untouchable, built on a foundation stronger than her lies. I walked inside, the pendant catching the light as I moved. The house was small, imperfect, but it was mine, a sanctuary born from defiance and love. I'd spent years chasing my family's approval, trying to earn a place at a table that was never set for me. But they'd never had a place for me, not really. So I'd built my own, board by board, choice by choice. With my own hands and heart, they'd mocked my $1, $200 dream. But it was stronger than their greed, their fragile facade, their empty promises. As I sat at the kitchen table, sipping coffee and listening to the distant laughter of the neighborhood, I thought about the future. I'd keep writing, keep building, keep fighting for the life I deserved. And when others came knocking, strangers, neighbors, or even family, they'd find a door that opened only to truth. This house, this life, was mine, and no one could take it away.